I'm Riley Hart, a data analyst intern in Portland, and this is the night my family mask cracked. My phone lit up because my dad forgot to hang up. His voice slid into my room, cool and steady, like a blade. That old man won't last a day after our Thanksgiving surprise. Silence from me. Then my mother's laugh. Bright and wrong. The mansion will be ours by Christmas, she said, like she was choosing ribbon for a gift. My heart slammed once, and the world narrowed to the glow of the screen. Dad's tone dropped lower. Make sure the wine is ready. He loves his Cabernet. That was the moment. I knew it wasn't a joke. It was a plan. I ended the call with shaking hands and dialed Harrison Cole. My grandfather. Grandpa. It's me. Please don't come to dinner. He listened, said he believed me, and told me not to run scared. I'll be there. And I won't be alone. From the outside we were flawless, the hearts in a glass palace. Gratitude scheduled for Thursday at 6. Inside, I was counting hours. I saved the recording and my courage in the same folder. Sleep did not come. The rain kept time. When my phone dimmed, I had one thought. If he comes, I must not blink. Wednesday, our house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt staged, like a set built for an audience that would never applaud. My mother, Lydia, moved through rooms with a clipboard, barking orders at the housekeeper. Every candle had to be aligned, every glass polished until it reflected her version of perfection. Derek, my father, obsessed over the menu and the wine. He spoke about the Cabernet like it was sacred, repeating how Harrison adored the 2009 vintage. He wanted everything flawless. But the way he moved tight, rushed, restless, betrayed what he was really planning. Their nerves were louder than any argument. At first, I tried to convince myself I was wrong, that maybe the call was misunderstood. Maybe guilt had warped my hearing. But then I saw it, the open document on Dad's laptop, property title transfer draft. The cursor blinked like it was taunting me. I stood there frozen, realizing that what I'd heard wasn't paranoia. It was paperwork in progress. That night, Lydia rehearsed her charm in the mirror, practicing smiles that didn't touch her eyes. Dad poured himself a drink and said, almost casually, "That family deserves our best." I nodded, pretending I believed him. But when Lydia said I'd be the one to pour Grandpa's first glass of wine, my stomach turned cold. I smiled on cue. The perfect daughter. Inside, I felt the floor beneath us cracking. Every word, every gesture was a rehearsal for betrayal. Dressed up as tradition, that night, I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, staring at my grandfather's number. The rain outside hit the window like a warning. When Harrison answered, his voice was calm. Too calm, as if he'd been expecting this call. I told him everything, the call, the draft, the wine, all of it. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he said softly that I'd done the right thing. His tone held no surprise, only quiet certainty. Greed always shows in the eyes before it reaches the hands, he said. And I realized he already knew. He had seen this coming long before I had. I begged him not to come, to stay somewhere safe until we figured it out. But Harrison refused, his voice steady as stone. If I run, they win, he said. I'll be there, but not alone. Those words didn't comfort me, they terrified me. Whatever he was planning, it wasn't retreat. It was confrontation. After the call, I sat in silence, my heart pounding against the dark. Downstairs, Lydia was humming while she polished silver. And Derek was on another hushed call. They looked like people preparing for a celebration. I knew better. Thanksgiving dinner wouldn't be a reunion. It would be a reckoning. I just didn't know who would survive it. By 6 o'clock sharp, the mansion glowed like a magazine spread. Candles flickered against the glass walls, and the smell of rosemary turkey filled the air. Lydia adjusted her pearl necklace one last time, while Derek paced near the window, checking his watch. "He's never late," he muttered, his voice sharp with tension, disguised as charm. When headlights finally swept through the iron gates, Lydia straightened her posture and smiled as if cameras were rolling. The door opened, and there stood Harrison Cole, tall in a dark overcoat, his silver hair gleaming under the porch light. But he wasn't alone. Behind him stood Marina Falk, his estate attorney, and Quinn Archer, his head of security. The air shifted instantly. Lydia blinked, caught off guard, and her smile faltered. Derek forced a laugh. "Trying to reclaim control? Security for Thanksgiving," he said, the joke landing flat. Harrison's reply was smooth and cutting. "Just a precaution. Can't be too careful with family these days." Every word settled like ice across the room. He walked past them, scanning the table, the wine, the gleaming silverware, all of it arranged for a performance. His gaze lingered on the decanter beside the Cabernet. Then he looked at me, and the faintest nod passed between us. Dinner was about to begin. But this was no family gathering anymore. It was a negotiation wrapped in linen. And power had already changed hands before a single plate was served. The table shimmered under the chandelier, every glass catching the light like a promise. Harrison sat at the head, calm and unreadable, while Lydia kept her smile fixed in place. Derek's hand hovered near the wine, his knuckle pale. When Harrison finally spoke, his tone was polite, almost gentle. As he asked me to pour, my fingers trembled slightly as I lifted the bottle. The Cabernet ran smooth and dark into each crystal glass. When I reached Harrison, he stopped me with a small gesture. "Allow me," he said, and poured his own, before casually switching his glass with my father's. The movement was so fluid that even Lydia missed it. For a few minutes, the only sound was the clink of silverware. Then Derek raised his glass, took a long drink, and froze mid-swallow. His face drained of color as he looked at Harrison. The old man's voice stayed steady. "Relax. It's not poison, just a mild sedative. Now you know how trust feels when it's tampered with." Lydia shot to her feet, eyes wide with disbelief. "You're insane," she snapped, her voice trembling. Harrison didn't flinch. "No, Lydia," he said quietly. "I'm deliberata. There's a difference." The silence that followed felt heavy enough to break the air. Derek's hands shook as he tried to steady himself, breathing shallow and quick. Across the table, Harrison's eyes were sharp with a calm authority that stripped the room bare. It wasn't revenge, it was a lesson in power. Derek's voice cracked first, anger crawling through his words. "What are you trying to prove?" he demanded. Harrison didn't answer. He gave a small nod to Quinn Archer, who touched his tablet, and the sound that filled the dining room made every fork stop midair. My father's voice echoed from the speakers, cold and unmistakable. "That old man won't last a day after our Thanksgiving surprise." Then my mother's laughter followed, light and cruel. The recording played in full every word, every pause, every plan. Lydia's hands flew to her mouth, eyes wide in disbelief. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. Harrison turned slightly toward me. "You forgot to hang up." "Derek." Riley heard everything and called me right after. I felt both exposed and vindicated, like the truth had finally clawed its way into the light. But Harrison wasn't finished. Marina Falk opened her briefcase and slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed logs and screenshots, the metadata from my phone showing the exact time of the butt dial, the call history, the automatic cloud backup. Every second was documented. Derek's jaw tightened as he realized there was no denying it. The paper trail was as clear as the voice recording. Then came the next layer. Marina revealed copies of text messages between Lydia and Jasper Boyd, her husband's business partner. The words were brief but damning mentions of the vial, cabernet, and Thursday night. Lydia went still, her composure disintegrating under the fluorescent truth. I saw Derek's expression twist as he recognized Jasper's name. Finally, Harrison laid down the last card. Financial records from Derek's private account showed quiet transfers to offshore holdings linked to the same art deals he had manipulated. Every dollar was accounted for. Every lie had a receipt. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the chandelier. Lydia turned to me, trembling. "You told him," she hissed. I met her gaze. "I saved him," I said. "Someone had to." For a long moment, no one moved. The evidence sat between us like a living thing, impossible to ignore. Derek's breathing was uneven, his face slick with sweat, while Lydia stared at the papers as if they could rewrite themselves. Harrison finally broke the silence, his voice low but unshakable. "I built this family on trust. You tried to burn it for profit." Marina Falk stood and opened a new folder. "As of this morning," she said, "all Carter properties and investments have been transferred into the Cole Foundation, a charitable trust established under Mr. Powers and we." Cole's direction. Derek's head snapped up, disbelief giving way to panic. "You gave everything away," he choked out. Harrison's reply was quiet but final. "Not gave. Entrusted. And Riley is its managing trustee." Lydia rose halfway from her chair, her voice trembling. "You can't do that. We're your family." Harrison's gaze cut through her pretense. "Blood means nothing without honor." The words landed harder than any accusation. He gestured to Quinn, who stepped forward, his posture formal but firm. "Mr. and Mrs. Hart, on your right to reside on this property has been revoked. Effective immediately." Derek shoved his chair back, fury flashing through the fear. "You think you can erase us? After everything?" Harrison didn't flinch. "You erased yourselves," he said. "I just made it legal." His tone carried no triumph, only exhaustion. The house that once echoed with their laughter now felt hollow. Lydia looked around the room as if realizing too late what they'd lost. Derek tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. And in that silence, the empire they had built on lies finally collapsed. The sound of sirens came first, faint but growing, their red and blue lights flashing through the tall windows. Harrison didn't look surprised. "I called them before dinner," he said, almost to himself. Derek's face drained of color as two officers stepped through the front door, led by Detective Alvarez. A calm man with a sharp eye. Harrison met him halfway, handing over a sealed envelope. Inside were the recordings, printed messages, and the vial found in Lydia's purse. The detective reviewed everything quietly before turning to my parents. "Derek Hart. Lydia Hart," he said evenly. "You're under arrest for conspiracy and attempted harm." The words landed with a weight that filled the entire house. Lydia's voice broke first, pleading that it was a mistake. Derek didn't speak, he just looked at me. Hollow, like the air had left his lungs. I wanted to turn away, but I couldn't. I had warned them, and they chose their path. Harrison stood beside me, silent, his presence steady as a verdict. As the officers led them toward the door, Lydia shouted over her shoulder, "You've destroyed your own family." Her voice cracked through the cold air. Harrison answered softly, almost kindly, "No, Lydia, you did that yourself." The door closed behind them, and the silence that followed felt heavier than the sirens fading down the drive. Within 24 hours, the story hit every major network. Headlines called it the Thanksgiving betrayal, a billionaire nearly poisoned by his own family. Reporters camped outside the gates, their voices echoing through the quiet streets of Portland. Harrison refused all interviews. "Justice doesn't need an audience," he told me, his tone measured. Final. The prosecutors moved fast, with the recordings, messages, and vial. The evidence was airtight. Lydia's attorney pushed for a plea deal, arguing she'd been coerced by Derek. In the end, both agreed to confess to attempted assault and conspiracy in exchange for probation and community service. Harrison accepted, not out of pity, but to close the wound. 3 years probation, 200 hours of service at a senior care home, a 5-year no-contact order with either of us. The tabloids called it lenient, and the public split into camps, half claiming mercy, half demanding prison. I stopped reading the comments after the first day. People argued over my name like it was a headline, not a life. When I told Harrison it didn't feel like justice, he just said, "It's not about punishment, Riley. It's about peace." His calm wasn't triumph, it was surrender to truth. And maybe that was justice enough. ChatGPT said. A month later, winter settled over Portland, soft and quiet. Inside the mansion, the Christmas tree glowed beside the fireplace, its light flickering across Harrison's face. He handed me a small velvet box and said simply, "It's time." Inside was an old brass key engraved with coal foundation. I stared at it, realizing it wasn't just a key, it was a vow. "You'll lead it now," he said, his voice warm but firm. "Keep it built on truth." I nodded, feeling the weight of both legacy and love. For the first time, peace didn't feel borrowed. It felt earned. Thank you for watching until the very end. If this story spoke to you, please subscribe so you never miss what comes next. And if you carry a story of your own, I invite you to share it in the comments. Your voice matters here. Always.